Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to talk about how much has small arms design really changed in, say, the last 70 years. To have that discussion, I have an FAL. The rifle was designed in the late 40s. It started development then, and around 1953 it went into production, and it became known as the right arm of the free world. 90+ nations would wind up using this as their primary infantry rifle. Fast forward to modern times, and we have the SCAR. Both rifles designed by Fabrique Nationale of Belgium, and both rifles intended for a military market. And so how much has really changed? How much changed from 1953 to the 2000s? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So also, I did notice in some of the comments that you guys are saying, hey Mac, you know, it's kind of interesting you don't talk about politics much on the channel anymore. That's because we've moved our political discussions to its own channel, and we post new content every single day, Monday through Friday. It's called Second Legacy, and I do have a link to it in the video description below. All right, with all that being said, let's get started with today's video, taking a look at the FAL, and then talking about the SCAR and how much has really changed. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So if you watch the Military Arms channel, you know that I am a huge fan of the FAL. We just recently did a video talking about an AR-15 FAL mashup, which you guys should check out if you're a fan of the FAL like I am. So the FAL is an elegant weapon. It is made primarily of steel and some polymers. And so you'll see the polymer pistol grip and handguard and then buttstock on certain versions. This one has the side folding stock, which is a little bit stiff, that is metal, but the guns are fairly heavy, fairly chunky. But if you take a look at them, they have really, really sexy lines, in my opinion. It's one of the best looking military rifles of all time. But the rifle uses a short stroke gas piston. And then internally, it's a very easy gun to maintain. This one does have its original FAL top cover with a NATO optic on it. So this is an original top cover, and it would replace your standard top cover so you could put optics on the gun. Now with the paras, the top cover and the bolt and carry are all kind of in one piece when you take it apart like that. On the full-size rifles, it's quite different. You don't have to take the top cover off to get the bolt out. But here you'll see we have the recoil spring integrated in there. Look at that. We have a recoil spring inside of a recoil spring, something we see being done today. Matter of fact, the single double nested recoil spring like this in the FAL AR-15 hybrid video, very similar. Okay, not much change there. Now this locking system is different. So it locks right here. So when it's in battery, you'll see how this drops down and then it hits a shelf on the back of the receiver. When the gun cycles, that drops forward, allows it to cycle rearward, and then as it goes back into battery, it drops back down and locks right here on the bottom of the bolt. Let me get the bolt out of there for you guys. Very simple gun. And this is your carrier. And then the short stroke gas piston will tap it right there in the face, which then sends the whole mechanism rearward. Very, very simple design. Then when you take a look over here, you can see where the short stroke gas piston protrudes. There's a tube that it rides in, has its own spring. We have an adjuster here to tune the rifle to its ammunition that you're going to use with it. There's a whole procedure we're not going to go into in this video. Then you do have a 2-position regulator on most models out here on the end. You have a shut off and then on for gas, then you tune it right here. Now this one also is fully kitted out for Cold War era options. It has an integrated bipod. So if you've ever wondered what these lines are on the handguards of the FALs, that's so the bipod can fold away and tuck into the handguards. So this one's equipped with an optic and a bipod, and this would be probably the most tactical FAL type rifle from the Cold War. Today you'll find top covers are available with 1913 rails. You can put whatever optics you want on them. This one's set up purposely to be a classic, to use classic equipment. We have seen some advancements recently in terms of upping the pressures in military cartridges. The 6.8x51 is an example of that, but you could shoehorn that cartridge into a gun like this. There's nothing keeping you from using that high pressure cartridge in a design like the FAL. You just have to modify the rifle a little bit. So again, nothing much has really changed in cartridges. That's carried over into modern times. You know, we invented cased cartridges around the late 1800s. You started to see them coming into prominence and went from black powder to smokeless powder to where we are today, but not much has really changed. So let's take a look, after having taken a look at this FAL, let's take a look at the SCAR. Because again, both of these rifles came from the same company. FN, Fabrique Nationale, designed this rifle and they designed the SCAR. So let's take a look at the SCAR and see how it operates and then compare it to the FAL and see, has anything really changed? The SCAR. Everybody in the United States that's in firearms has some sort of an attraction to the SCAR, I would assume. It's a very popular rifle. You'll see it in video games, you'll see people buying them. They're extremely expensive, but people love them. Now the military didn't have so much of a love affair with the gun. It seemed popular in the beginning, but it quickly petered out in popularity and gave way to other weapon systems. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. So the SCAR is an evolutionary step forward from the FAL for FN. And so let's kind of take a look at some of the features the rifle has. Now, as I pointed out, with the FAL has a folding stock. Well, they've maintained that with the SCAR, but we've also added the functionality of an adjustable length of pull, so you can get the right eye relief on optics. Optics being something that we do in 2023 that we didn't necessarily do all that much during the Cold War. Optics were available, but most militaries didn't use them or use them very sparingly. Iron sights kind of ruled the day back then. And then we have, you know, an AR-15 type pistol grip, selector lever that's ambi, and we have polymer down here, polymer stock, extruded aluminum upper receiver. So one of the biggest changes, I would say, from developments from the 1950s versus today would be the use of polymers. Polymers, like as I showed you on the FAL, was used in the pistol grip, in the butt stock, and the hand guards, but it was a different type of polymer. It's a heavier, more durable polymer. The polymer on this thing is really, really flimsy feeling. It's very, very lightweight. And these little tabs, you'll see people replacing these, the locking tabs, with metal pieces, because when you snap them closed, you have a tendency to break those off. So the polymers is something that has changed. But is that an improvement? Well, when it comes to weight, yes. In terms of durability, the jury's out on that one, in my opinion. I don't like the stock on this. I would much rather put an ACR type stock on it, which is more durable. This hollow little plastic thing just seems kind of a weak point to the gun. When we come up here and take a look at the action of the gun, we're still feeding from a 20-round box magazine. And the irony in this is the SCAR magazine. Here's an FAL magazine. Do they look similar to you? Well, they should, because really the SCAR magazine is just a modified FAL mag. They put a different floor plate on it. They cut it for a different type of magazine release versus the locking mechanism, the two-point locking mechanism, the original FAL design. But they're pretty much the same magazine. Now, you can't use FAL magazines in the SCAR. They are modified enough to where they won't just, it's not an easy swap or conversion to make. But it's just interesting to note that the magazines in 70 years are just being reused. All right, so when we move forward here, we have a short stroke gas piston. We have an adjustable gas regulator out here on the end, something that the original FAL had. We don't have the ability to fine tune it to different types of ammunition. Whether that's necessary or not is debatable. I don't think that it is. But then we have a short stroke gas piston in here. And so it has a little gas rod, and when the gun fires, gas will push on the rod. It'll tap the face of the bolt carrier, and that'll move it rearward, just like the FAL. Let me show you. I'll take the gun apart. So taking the SCAR apart, I showed you the FAL, very simple. You have a little pin here in the front on the SCAR. I'm going to pop this pin out and then kind of push forward and pull down, and that polymer lower will come off. Now this versus the FAL, this is all steel or metal. So this is much, much lighter than the lower receiver of an FAL. Then I can take the stock off. Once that lowers off, I can just slide the stock off. And then I can pull the bolt and carrier out here. Now with the non-reciprocating charging handle, which is a modification, you have to make sure this is forward and locked in the forward position. Otherwise, you won't be able to get your bolt and carrier out. They'll lock together on this little notch right there. All right, so the bolt and carrier, let's take a look at the FAL. So you can see the difference here. So it's just a different type of operating mechanism. If you take a look at the SCAR, it's using an AR-15, AR-10 style bolt, rotating bolt. So that's a difference. Now keep in mind, this bolt system was also developed in the late 50s by Eugene Stoner. So this is old technology. They've just swapped one for the other. In my mind, this is pretty simplistic. but is it more robust than this? I don't think so. This is taking off for a reason, because all those lugs offer a lot of strength. And I think that the reason why you see so many modern rifles using this style of bolt is because it is superior. But if you take a look at the front, you can see right there on the end where the short stroke gas piston taps, just like on the face of the carrier for the FAL. Pretty interesting. So in essence, nothing here has really changed. Yes, we swapped locking systems, but that locking system, as I pointed out, is nothing new. So really, there's nothing new here. Steel, rotating bolts, cartridges, gunpowder, lead bullets, copper jackets, all that stuff hasn't changed. So when we come back over to this, what we're left with, if the operating mechanism is still pretty much the same, then what has changed? The construction methods. That's it. Now, you've heard me say here on the channel before, after World War II, innovations in small arms really kind of plateaued. We haven't really come up with anything new after World War II. We've taken bits and pieces of designs that pre-existed and then reconfigured them. The Glock is a perfect example. The Glock was nothing new when it came out. It wasn't the first polymer-framed pistol. HK did that. It wasn't the first striker-fired pistol. That's been done well before. The Luger striker-fired. So, I mean, there's nothing new in the Glock. Even the double-stack magazine was done before the Glock. They just took bits and pieces, repackaged them into a package that people liked, met the right, had the right functionality, reliability, and cost structure that people kind of gravitated towards it. But nothing new there. And this is the exact same story. So here we have an aluminum receiver. This is going to be lighter weight than a steel receiver. Aluminum is generally lighter weight. It's extruded, so it's made to be manufactured cost effectively and quickly, which is something that militaries have struggled with all the time. Now, in peacetime, it's not all that important that you have simplicity of design and manufacturing, because you have time to build things and stockpile them. But in times of war, when you're trying to replace, lost weapons, then that cost and simplicity of manufacturing becomes very critical to the ongoing war effort. So the SCAR does improve that area of the design, along with the polymers. Lightweight, quickly molded. You can crank these things out by the thousands a day, and they come right out of the molds almost ready to use. So, with the polymers, the aluminum and stuff like that, they've really changed the game in terms of construction. They've lowered the weight, they've reduced the cost, they've reduced the complexity in manufacturing, but they've just repackaged everything. It's the exact same system of operation for the most part of guns that came before it being the SCAR. Pretty interesting if you ask me. Well, guys, I hate to be the harbinger of bad news, but we've kind of peaked in technology when it comes to gunpowder, brass cases, lead bullets, copper jackets, and primers. There's not much else we can do. We've taken this technology to its limits, and now humanity is ready for a different kind of warfare. And that's scary, isn't it? Because if you take a look at what's happening right now with the rise of artificial intelligence, with the use of drones, discussions about taking humans out of cockpits, taking soldiers off battlefields and replacing them with droids and drones, and energy-based weapons, the face of warfare in the next 100 years is going to change significantly. These will be viewed as antiques. How will the government view them? Well, they'll probably still not want you to have them, but if you take a look at the Civil War, for example, say the 1860s, cap and ball revolvers were the deadliest instruments known to man at the time, and they would carry, the soldiers in those days would carry 4 or more pistols and fight with those pistols because they could fire so quickly, and they had the cylinders that could hold 5-6 rounds in them. But then you go to 2023 and you can order a cap and ball revolver, a replica of a 1860s era gun, and it's not even considered a firearm by the US government. It's regulated like a BB gun. You can have it shipped right to your house, no paperwork, government doesn't care. As a matter of fact, in some jurisdictions, felons can even own them because they're not considered firearms, and that's where this technology is headed in the next 100 years. Looking at the SCAR, you think this is the epitome of modern technology and warfighting, but in 100 years, this thing's going to be a toy in the eyes of people fighting with modern weapons in the future. So it's just something to think about. I enjoy my gunpowder, I enjoy my lead and my copper, and so as long as I'm alive, I'm going to continue to shoot these things, and I also enjoy iron sights. I look forward to your comments down below, guys. What do you think about my thoughts on the development of small arms in the last 70 years or so? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? comment down below. I enjoy reading those comments. Thank you for watching, guys. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. Link down below. Right here on YouTube, you got the join and thanks button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash either one of those buttons and you can support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Last but not least, please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 15 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.